Myra stood at the prow of their salvaging ship, the wind tugging fiercely at her fiery red hair, her sharp green eyes locked on the horizon. The sea beyond was a churning mass of refuse and corrosive mists, a landscape as hostile as any battlefield. Yet here, in this chaotic expanse, Myra found her purpose. But purpose alone had not always been enough. Only days prior, her impulsiveness had nearly cost them dearly. A reckless decision during a skirmish with rival scavengers had left their vessel vulnerable and the crew shaken. The memory gnawed at her, a bitter taste she could neither swallow nor spit out. This voyage was more than survival. It was a test of growth, of tempering fire with steel. Kael's voice crackled over the comlink, steady and measured. Mirror, status on the starboard engines. We need a full report before we navigate the narrow passage ahead. She swallowed hard, pushing aside the knot of anxiety. Engines are holding, but there's a misalignment in the secondary compressor. I'm on it now. The cramped engine room was a world apart from the open decks. Here, the hum of machinery meshed with the hiss of steam and the occasional clang of wrench on metal. Myra's hands, scarred from years of combat and repair, moved with practiced precision, guided by Grav's gruff but patient instructions. Slow and steady wins the race, Grav muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. Don't let your temper get the better of you, kid. Myra shot him a wry smile, the tension easing just a fraction. Trying not to bear shared focus on the work at hand, forged a momentary truce between impulse and caution. The engines coughed and groaned under their ministrations, but held firm. Later, as the sun dipped low behind the rusted skyline of Steelbone, Myra found herself in the common area, a dimly lit space where the crew gathered to trade stories and solace. Lena sat nearby, her satchel of herbs resting within easy reach, her warm presence a balm to frayed nerves. You've been quiet, Lena observed softly, her eyes reflecting the flickering lantern light. What's on your mind? Myra hesitated, the walls she'd built around her vulnerabilities trembling. I'm tired of being the loose cannon, she admitted. I want to be more for the crew, for Kael. I want to lead when it counts. Lena reached across the table, her hands steady and reassuring. Leadership isn't about never faltering. It's about knowing when to lean on others and when to stand firm. You're already stronger than you realize. The words settled over Myra like a shield, emboldening her resolve. The next challenge came swiftly. A toxic storm, sudden and fierce, swept over the sea, darkening skies and roiling the waters with acidic winds. The crew scrambled to secure the vessel as Myra took charge, her voice cutting through the howling tempest. Tess, take the starboard watch. Keep the sensors clear and report any mechanical beasts approaching. Tess, young and agile, nodded, her eyes wide but determined. On it, Myra. Amid the chaos, Myra's commands were a steady drumbeat of control and care. The crew moved as one, weathering the storm's fury with grit born of countless trials. When the skies finally cleared, a heavy silence fell over the deck. Exhaustion mingled with relief as the crew gathered, their eyes reflecting the flickering stars breaking through the dissipating clouds. Kael approached Myra, his gaze sharp but approving. You held us together out there. I'm proud of you. Myra met his eyes, the weight of her journey reflected in their depths. I'm learning, for all of us. As the night deepened, Myra allowed herself a rare moment of quiet hope. The sea was still treacherous, and their path uncertain. But within her burned a renewed strength of fierce, tempered flame ready to face whatever the toxic horizon dared to throw their way. The voyage was far from over, but Myra's resolve was clear. She would lead not as a tempest, but as the steady wind that carried Steelbone's found family toward whatever dawn awaited beyond the shifting scrap. And as the ship creaked gently beneath her feet, she vowed silently that this time she would not falter. The sea could rage all it wanted, so could she, but the journey ahead held secrets yet to be revealed, and shadows lurking just beyond the horizon. Mira's newfound balance was a beacon, but would it be enough to guide them through the coming storm? Only time would tell, and the toxic sea was patient in its waiting. The flickering hollow screen cast a pale light across his slender face, highlighting the cracked glasses perched precariously on his nose. His fingers traced the glowing lines of the artifact's schematics, worn and fragmented, like the city of Steelbone itself. Hours had passed in silence, except for the soft hum of failing engines and the distant creak of shifting scrap, beneath the toxic sea's oppressive shroud. Joran's mind worked tirelessly, piecing together symbols and codes from a language long lost to the world. Each fragment of knowledge brought him closer to understanding the artifact's true nature, key not just to survival but to the balance of the sea itself. Outside, the city's muted bustle continued. Kael's crew moved through their routines, weighed down by the uncertainty of their journey yet bound by a shared hope. Lena's gentle footsteps approached, and she paused at the cabin's threshold, her sun-kissed skin glowing softly in the dim light. "Anything new?" she asked, her voice a soothing balm against the cold tension. Joran looked up, eyes shining with the spark of discovery. "More than new," he replied, voice steady but charged with excitement. "This artifact, it's not just a relic. It's connected to the seas, balance its power, its dangers, and it holds the key to understanding the Warden's fall." Kael appeared behind Lena, his lean frame silhouetted by the cabin's weak light. His sharp eyes locked onto the schematics, absorbing every detail with the weight of a leader who carried more than just plans. He carried the fate of Steelbone. "Explain," Kael demanded, voice low but commanding. Joran took a deep breath and began. The artifact was created by the ancients to regulate the sea's toxic energy, a control mechanism to maintain balance. But it was lost, and with it, the harmony. The Warden was once a guardian of this balance, but something broke. Him loss, fear, obsession. He turned from protector to tyrant, using mechanical beasts to enforce his will and keep outsiders away. Lena's brow furrowed, the weight of the revelation pressing down. "So the Warden's power is tied to the artifact's absence?" "Exactly," Joran nodded. "If we retrieve it, we can restore balance, not just save Steelbone, but prevent further destruction. But it won't be easy. The Warden won't let us take it without a fight." The room fell silent, the gravity of their mission crystallizing in the stale air. Outside, the toxic sea rumbled a reminder of the hostile world, waiting beyond their fragile sanctuary. Joran's fingers hovered over the schematics again, determination hardening his features. "We have to understand every detail, every mechanism. It's the only way to stand a chance." Kael rested a hand on Joran's shoulder, a rare gesture of trust. "You've done well, Joran. Your knowledge is our light in this darkness." Lena smiled softly, her optimism a quiet anchor. "Together, we can face whatever comes." This discovery is hope. As the crew gathered around, listening to Joran's findings, a tentative warmth spread through the cabin. In a world adrift on toxic waves and mechanical monsters, knowledge was their strongest weapon. And with it, their fierce determination to survive burned brighter than ever. But even as hope blossomed, shadows lingered. The Warden's reach was long, and the deeper truths Joran uncovered hinted at sacrifices yet to come. The artifact was more than a key, it was a promise, a burden, and a challenge that would test the very soul of Steelbone's found family. Joran adjusted his cracked glasses once more, the weight of history pressing heavy yet inspiring. "We're ready," he said quietly. "Let's bring the future back from the depths." Outside, the toxic sea whispered secrets beneath a bruised sky, its endless expanse both a threat and a canvas for their courage. The voyage was far from over, it had only just begun. And so, with hearts steeled and minds sharpened, the crew of Steelbone prepared to sail deeper into the unknown. Guided by the light of discovery and the unyielding hope that no matter the darkness, they would find a way through. Kael crouched near the heart of the failing machinery, his hands working with practiced precision despite the fatigue that weighed heavily on his limbs. The metallic scent of oil and rust mingled with the acrid temps of the toxic sea air that seeped through every crack in Steelbone's patchwork hull. Each turn of the wrench was deliberate, an attempt not just to mend the broken engine, but to hold together the fragile hope of a city adrift. His eyes, sharp yet shadowed with years of loss, traced the intricate network of pipes and cogs. A loose bolt threatened to undo everything, and with a steady breath he tightened it, the click echoing softly in the confined space. But as the hum of the machinery steadied, Kael's thoughts drifted to the faces of those he had failed, the family lost to the merciless storms, the voices silenced by his mistakes. The weight of command bore down on him, heavier than any scrap metal that formed the city's hull. Stepping out of the engine room, Kael's footsteps were muffled against the worn metal flooring. The common area buzzed quietly with the low murmurs of the crew, each member caught in their own private battle against despair and hope. Lena was there, tending to a minor injury on Tessa's arm, her hands moving with the gentle confidence of someone who healed not just wounds of flesh, but of spirit. As Kael approached, the soft scent of herbs wrapped around him, a balm to the relentless storm inside. Without a word, Lena met his gaze and offered a small, understanding smile. It was an invitation, a lifeline thrown across the chasm of Kael's solitude. Hesitation flickered in his eyes before he allowed himself to sit beside her, the tight armor of self-reliance cracking just enough to let a sliver of vulnerability seep through. "It's not just the engine's failing," Kael confessed quietly, voice rough from disuse. "It's me. I carry too much, too many ghosts." Lena nodded, her fingers brushing lightly over his knuckles. "You don't have to carry it all alone. We're here. We're your family now." The words hung in the air, fragile and precious. For a moment, the relentless toxic sea outside seemed to recede, replaced by the warmth of shared burdens and mutual trust. But the path to vulnerability was not smooth. Later, when the crew gathered to discuss their next move, tensions flared. Myra's fiery temper ignited as she challenged Kael's cautious approach. "You can't keep shutting us out," she snapped, arms crossed tightly. "We're risking our lives, and you act like you're the only one who knows what's best. Trust us, Kael. Let us in." Kael's jaw tightened, the stubbornness that had long been both his shield and his prison rising to the surface. "I lead because I have to. If I falter, we all fall. But you're not alone," Myra retorted, her voice softer now, but no less fierce. "We're your crew, your family. You have to let us share the burden." The exchange left the room charged but opened a crack in Kael's defenses. Later, as Joran presented his latest findings, ancient schematics hinting at new possibilities for the artifact, Kael found himself listening with a new kind of attention. The quiet confidence in Joran's voice was a balm to the captain's weary soul. "We're stronger together," Kael finally admitted, the words tasting strange yet liberating. "I've been holding on too tight, afraid to trust, but I can't do this alone." The crew exchanged glances, a collective breath held and released in unison. The journey ahead was perilous, the toxic sea was unforgiving, and the warden's shadow loomed large. But with Kael beginning to share his burdens, the crew stood a chance of facing the coming storm not as isolated survivors, but as a united family. Night deepened over Steelbone, and as the city creaked and groaned against the endless sea, Kael sat once more beneath the stars, this time with Mira and Lena by his side. The distant howl of mechanical beasts echoed over the waves, a grim reminder of the threats yet to come. But beneath the weight of past failures and present fears, a fragile hope took root. Together they would endure, together they would fight, together they would survive. And in the quiet moments between battles, Kael dared to believe that redemption was still possible. The engines of Steelbone groaned anew, a tentative heartbeat in the vast expanse of the toxic sea. But in the heart of the floating city, a captain's burden was beginning to lighten. The journey was far from over, and the shadows still held many dangers. Yet for the first time in a long while, Kael felt the stirrings of something he had long forgotten: trust. The voyage ahead would test them all, but with his crew at his side, Kael was ready to face whatever the endless sea might throw their way. And as the night deepened, the city of scrap and steel held fast, its legacy entwined with the fierce, bittersweet determination of those who called it home. Tomorrow, Kael whispered to the dark, we faced the storm together. The sea waited, endless and unforgiving, but so did they. And that was enough for now. A soft amber light flickered from a cluster of oil lamps, casting long shadows that danced like ghosts. Lena moved with practiced grace, her fingers gentle but sure as she tended to the wounded. The scent of crushed sage and mint filled the cramped space, mingling with the faint metallic temps of blood. She knelt beside Joran, whose pale face was etched with fatigue and a fresh gash along his forearm. Hold still, Lena murmured, her voice a soothing balm amid the sterile discomfort. She carefully cleaned the wound with a cloth dampened in distilled water, then applied a poultice made from crushed nettles and willow bark. This will help with the pain and prevent infection. Joran winced, but offered a grateful nod. Thank you, Lena. She smiled softly, brushing a stray lock of hair from his forehead. You're doing well, we all are. Outside the infirmary, the ship groaned under the weight of the toxic sea's relentless waves. The crew's recent battle with the warden's mechanical beasts had left scars, some visible, others hidden deep within their weary spirits. Lena knew that healing flesh was only part of her task. Mending the fragile bonds that held this found family together was equally vital. Kael entered quietly, his silhouette framed by the doorway's dim light. His dark eyes, sharp and alert even in weariness, flickered with a storm of suppressed emotions. Lena watched as the captain's usual stoicism faltered, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his weathered face. You should rest, she said gently, stepping forward to offer support. Kael shook his head, a shadow of guilt tightening his jaw. There's no time, not while the city's fate hangs in the balance. Lena placed a steady hand on his arm. Even the strongest need care, Kael. You don't have to bear this alone. For a moment, the captain's defenses cracked, and a weary sigh escaped him. I'm afraid if I let go, everything will slip away. That's why you need us, Lena replied, her voice firm yet kind. We're your crew, your family. Mira stormed in then, fiery red hair wild from her latest skirmish. Her green eyes blazed with frustration and exhaustion, but they softened the moment they met Lena's warm gaze. They're asking for reinforcements again, Myra said breathlessly, pacing the narrow floor. We can't keep running on scraps and bruises. Lena's smile was unwavering. Then we'll keep healing, keep fighting, Together, Grav appeared at the door, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the toxic twilight beyond. "We've got work to do," he grunted, but even his gruff voice carried a note of reassurance. The room seemed to pulse with renewed energy, a fragile flame of hope flickering against the endless dark sea outside. Lena's hands moved again, tending wounds, offering comfort, weaving the invisible threads that bound the crew in unity. Hours passed, marked by whispered confidences and quiet laughter amidst the groans of pain. Stories of lost homes and dreams shared around makeshift beds, knitting the crew into something more than survivors, found family forged in fire and desperation. When dawn's first sickly light seeped through the tattered curtains, Lena stood by the infirmary's entrance, her satchel of herbs slung over one shoulder. The sea beyond rumbled with indifferent menace, but inside, a fragile sanctuary had been preserved. The wounds she'd healed were not just physical. They were the fragile hope that would carry them through the trials yet to come. Kael approached, his gaze steady. "Thank you, Lena, for everything." She nodded, a quiet promise in her eyes. "We all have a part to play, and we survive because we don't face this alone." As the sun rose over Steelbone's drifting scrap city, the crew gathered strength, not only from the artifact they sought, but from the healing touch of one who nurtured their battered bodies and spirits. Amid the endless toxic sea, Lena's care was a Bikana reminder that even in desolation, hope could flourish. Yet outside, the distant clank of mechanical beasts and the shadow of the warden loomed ever closer. The voyage was far from over, and Lena knew the hardest trial still awaited. But with the crew mended and united, the flicker of resilience burned brighter than ever. The chapter closed as Lena prepared a new batch of remedies, her thoughts already racing ahead to the dangers on the horizon. In this fragile moment of calm, the found family stood poised to face whatever came next together. Around him, the sounds of Steelbone's failing engines groaned a mournful song, but Grav's focus was absolute. Each bolt he tightened, each wire he reconnected was a promise etched in sweat and glitter, promise to protect the fragile found family that depended on him. Kael's footsteps echoed softly behind him, a quiet presence that Grav welcomed. "How's she looking?" Kael's voice was low, edged with the weight of their shared burden. "Good enough to sing death to those metal nightmares," Grav replied, his gravelly tone carrying a rare spark of confidence. "But we need to be ready. They're getting bolder, and the warden's beasts won't wait for us to be perfect." Mira appeared at the doorway, her fiery hair aflame against the dim light. "I've been scouting the east perimeter. Saw a pack of the warden's hunters moving in. They're hunting smarter, using the ruins as cover. If we don't hold the line, Steelbone's days are numbered." Grav nodded, standing to his full imposing height. "Then we hold it, with fire and steel. Lena's got the med supplies ready, and we've got traps laid in the usual choke points." The crew gathered quickly as the toxic green clouds overhead deepened into a storm's promise. Grav took command with a voice that brooked no argument, setting the crew's defensive positions with a pragmatism born of countless battles. The pulse cannon hummed to life, its heavy barrel glowing faintly as Grav tested the charge. The first mechanical beast emerged from the Meester, hulking monstrosity of rusted limbs and glowing, malevolent optics. Grav's pulse cannon roared, a thunderous blast that shattered metal and sent sparks flying. The beast staggered, but more were coming, their screeches and clanking steps rising in a cacophony of death. Amid the chaos, Grav's booming orders cut through the din. "Hold the line. Mira, flank left. Kael, cover the rear. Lena, ready the medkits." The battle was brutal and relentless. Grav's expertise shone as he anticipated the beast's movements, deploying heavy weapons with surgical precision. The crew's unity under his leadership was palpable. Despite the fear and exhaustion, they fought with desperate hope. When the last mechanical beast collapsed into a heap of sparking wreckage, the silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the ragged breaths of survivors. Grav wiped grime from his scarred face, feeling the sting of a fresh wound. Lena was already by his side, her gentle hands applying balm with practiced care. "You took quite a hit," she murmured, concern softening her usual optimism. "Nothing I can't handle," Grav grunted, a rare smile flickering. "But thanks for keeping me in one piece." Later, in the cramped engine room, Grav and Kael pored over damaged schematics and salvaged beast components. The flickering light cast long shadows as they debated tactics and repairs. "We can't keep fighting like this," Kael said, frustration evident. "We need a longer-term solution." Grav's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then we build one. We learn their weaknesses, exploit their flaws. We turn their own metal against them." In that moment, the unspoken bond between them cemented the shared resolve to protect Steelbone at any cost. As the toxic sea churned beyond the scrap walls, the crew's found family stood a little stronger, their hope forged anew in the fire of Grav's strength and steadfast loyalty. And yet, as the storm clouds gathered once more, a silent question lingered in the air. How much more could they endure before the sea and the Warden claimed them all? The battle was won, but the war for Steelbone's survival was far from over.